I'm a storyteller. I love narrative. I love narratives that fuel stories and move them along, and we see the experience of life through them. When I was a child, I went to ballet school, followed my sister to ballet school when I was 7, and loved it so much that I decided that I wanted to be a dancer. And so I went to London to school to study dance, and realised quite quickly that dance was not really for me. I wanted to be a choreographer. I didn't fancy being a dancer who had to do everything that other people said. So I became a choreographer, and I had a career as a choreographer until I was in my late 30s. I was also directing in the theatre. I worked around the world, and occasionally I designed productions as well. I began to draw and to paint, which is not something I'd ever done. I'd drawn, but I'd never painted. Things started to evolve for me, and I had a second career, which I'm still in, which is as an artist. We are talking about the built environment, we are talking about the historic environment, we're talking about heritage, and that's something I do know about because ever since I was a child I've wandered around castles and imagined what they would be like, and wandered around great houses and imagined what it might have been like to live in them. I love taking all those things from different places and putting them all in a box and keeping them close to me and then taking them out when I need them. So when I come to do a job, like this job that I'm doing now for English Heritage, I've got all these toys in the box and I know exactly where to go to rootle them out, what would be perfect for the brief and to make it work. And that's a treat.
When we got the brief through from English Heritage, we were really, really excited. One of the things that we were struck by is that it was a really interesting technology challenge, which is something that we love doing. One of the things that we were most drawn to, and I know specifically that I was really excited about, was like heraldic illustration and being able to incorporate things like dragons and mythical beings, which is not something that we typically get to do. So that was hugely exciting. That was a really nice approach.
When we saw the brief for this project, obviously we were really excited. With illustrations as well, often you see, online maps. Everyone's used to using Google. It's flat, it's graphic, it's really easy to use, obviously. But this was less about a map as a thing to navigate, but more as an exploration piece of artwork.
I think because it's quite an illustration-rich website, and we've got so many assets of images and layers and things that we've put into it, that's quite a bit unusual. Like a lot of the time, like now design is taking a more flat, image-less kind of route. So it's interesting to actually put all of that into the app, and in such a scale that we have done it, and it to work really quickly and be performant on mobile and tablets and anything that you throw at it, really.
You have a mini-map that shows you where you are in relation to the rest of the UK, and we were trying to think about how you could, as you drag around the map, you could move the focus box on the mini-map. You want it to be like a seamless experience. We want it to be easy. We want them to get the fully immersive experience of being able to drag around the UK and find all these myths and legends.
Obviously, we want to preserve as much of Clive's style as possible. When Clive is illustrating the map, it's a huge canvas and it looks incredible, it looks amazing, and that's normally how people view a map is, they open it out, unfold it, uncover lots of things all at once, and then they can kind of hone in on a certain area. Little kind of forest critters or sea creatures looming sort of around the coastline, dragging ships down, It just started to get really exciting.
This is my painting room. This is my easel, currently covered not in paintings but in drawings for telling tales. We're up to Artek's world now, this horrible rough plaster which is due to come off, but we haven't got around to it. But it's my secret weapon. When you use it to make rubbings, you get these lovely textures that are quite three-dimensional. And so the textures of the map were made from rubbing pencils over paper on top of my Artek's walls in my studio. Old maps are full of these sea monsters. Is one of my references, which is this fantastic book on sea monsters on medieval and Renaissance maps. And that's been really useful to look at. And so although I'm working in my own style, I'm using historic references. One of the things that will happen on the map, the first thing that we see is what we're calling a cartouche. What you'll have is this light shape over a dark background, and there will be writing in the middle of it, and then the digital eye goes through this and descends through clouds and onto the map. English Heritage presenting a map about myths and legends. So we have references to buildings in care, and we've used George and the Dragon as the crowning glory of this particular cartouche because George is one of the characters that we'll be investigating, and they just add a little sweetness to the feel of going into an environment that we're going to be drawn into because it's a living, breathing environment. I think one of the things about animation, one of the things about puppetry is that you need to get the feeling that the characters are breathing, that there's life going on. Stillness is kind of death, movement is life. And so just having a little bit of animation on top of this will be quite charming and will lead us through. And then as we go through, little flights of birds go past as we go down, descend through the clouds, and then all of a sudden, here we are, we see the map.